Ihr hört einen Podcast vom Future of Festivals, das Branchentreffen für alle VeranstalterInnen, Dienstleistende, EntscheiderInnen und Auszubildenden aus dem Festivalbereich. Die nächste Ausgabe findet von Donnerstag, den 27. bis Freitag, den 28. November 2025 in der Station Berlin statt. Die folgende Aufzeichnung ist aus dem Jahre 2024 von dem Diskussionspanel mit dem Namen
Festivals as Change Drivers Towards a Greener Future.
Viel Spaß beim Zuhören. Mehr Informationen und Tickets findest du unter www.futureoffestivals.com.
I think we will begin our talk now. We are so happy that you have all stopped by to hear us talk a bit about energy and how we can create change and a better future. I'm Emma, I'm from Roskilde Festival, and I am formally the moderator of this talk, but hopefully it will be a conversation between the three of us, and that we can ask each other questions as we go along as well. First of all, let's introduce ourselves. As I said, my name is Emma Sjørvad. I'm from Roskilde Festival, where I'm a project manager. And I have been at Roskilde for the last 3 years. I have worked with a lot of different topics regarding green transitions at Roskilde, both our energy transition, which we are going to talk about today, and carbon footprint accounting, procurement policies, and a lot of different things that we want to change at Roskilde. My background is actually in political science, and I have a great interest generally in how we can make societal change in all different arenas. So that's short about me. And I have these two great people with me today. I'm so happy that you wanted to join us today. Would you like to introduce yourself first, Henriette?
Yeah, hi guys. My name is Henriette. I am the project lead of the energy transition project that we're doing with the Roskilde Festival. Also, I work for Andel, which is a really big co-op in Denmark. We have more than 400,000 owners, and we own a large part of the infrastructure on all of Zealand and also a bit in Jutland, ranging from energy production over to charging for electric vehicles and stuff like that. Personally, before I joined Andel, which was 4 years ago, I worked in an NGO called CARE, and I've also been a brand director at a sustainability think tank. And prior to that, I was an entrepreneur, so always been really interested in the green transition and how companies, they can actually make things work out there. So that's a bit about me.
Then we have Mathias.
Yeah, hi, my name is Mathias Sonne. I'm the head of communication and culture at the Danish Embassy. And actually, if that's your position, you have to work a lot with green transition, because that's mainly what we export and what we work with in our trade council. Could be, for example, green hydrogen, wind energy, electricity, even district heating, any kinds of green transition solutions coming from Denmark. We try to push them in Germany politically and on the German market as well. So that's a big part of my job as head of communication at the Danish Embassy. Besides that, we do a lot of culture in my department, or cultural events. Like yesterday, for example, we celebrated the 100th birthday of the grandmother of techno. She's Danish and called Else Marie Pade. That didn't really have a green touch, but actually most things what we do are some kind of connected to either digitalization, green transition, or democracy. I'll tell more about that later. And my background before that, actually I've done the most stupid thing you can ever do. I studied German and philosophy at the university in Roskilde. Then I ended up in Berlin by accident, I got pregnant in Berlin, so to say, with a Berlin woman, and that's the best thing I've ever done. So I ended up here and worked as a journalist and a correspondent for 15 years, almost 15 years, and then I switched to the Danish Embassy last year and have been heading the department for culture and communication since then.
Great, I'm so happy you're here. First of all, I will take a little time to talk about Roskilde Festival, what it is, who we are, and why we are here today talking about energy and change. So first of all, if you don't know, Roskilde Festival is the biggest festival in Northern Europe. We have 130,000 visitors each year, and of them, 30,000 of them are volunteers. So a huge festival. We are the fourth biggest city in Denmark when we do the festival. So that's for 1 week of the year we can say that. We started in 1971, so we have been around for more than 50 years, and also grew out of like the hippie movements, peace movements, and all of these grassroots movements, and that is what we carry with us to this day. We have also been non-profit since then, which means that every year we give all of our surplus from the festival to charity. We focus on charity for children and young people, and for art and activism and music and green transition, social innovation, all of those things. So that is kind of our DNA, that we want to do good in this world, and that is what we have done for the last 50 years. The festival is for 8 days. We have 4 first days where the campsite is open, where we have a lot of activities with concerts from emerging artists and a lot of different activities on activism and art. And then we have the 4 main days where we have the full festival site open and also the full festival program. I have some pictures behind us from Roskilde Festival just for the vibes, so you can kind of get a feeling if you have never been. One of the projects that we are doing and that I'm project managing is a project that we call Music and Music Festivals as Change Drivers. We see that in the world around us there is a lot of crisis and that they are intertwined, both climate change, nature and biodiversity, mental health declining. We see war, we see inflation, all of this stuff, and we have to ask ourselves going into this future, what is the relevance of festivals in that future? And we also see a festival and music industry moving very fast in the direction of commercialization and all of those tendencies. So what role do we have to play in that? And we see that festivals have a unique space and a unique community where we can be catalysts of change in a lot of different aspects. We can use that community feeling and that you are open for new perspectives when you are on a festival as a lab to test new ideas. And we, with this project, Music and Music Festivals as Change Drivers, want to engage both Danish and international festival and music actors in conversations about how can we use our platforms for change, how can we activate them, and how can we actually take on that responsibility, because we have a huge opportunity to do so and to actually be a part of a better future and push in that direction. So we want to start networks, we want to participate in international settings like today, to inspire from what we do, but also to learn and to get more knowledge on what we can do. Yeah, so that was a bit about the festival. In general, we see that we can do 2 things. We can change our own practices, what we do as a festival, how do we build up this huge city. We have a lot of say in that. We can change up stuff as we want. And we have a responsibility to do so, but we also have a responsibility to influence our audiences, inspire them to do something and maybe change something for the rest of the year.
One question, how big
Yeah.
is the festival these years? Roskilde Festival.
How big it is?
Yeah, you said this big city of?
Oh yeah, 130,000 people. So that's a lot of people gathered in one place and a lot of young people. The average age of the festival is 24 years old. So we have a lot of very, very young people at the festival. And what do we do when we gather so many people together? We have a huge responsibility to these young generations to actually meet them where they are and take their concerns seriously. But we are here today to talk about energy, and that is one of the things where we can change a lot about how we, as a festival, can do something differently in the way we build up our festival, but also to inspire. The way we will have this conversation in general is that we will start to talk a bit about what we did at Roskilde Festival. We started a partnership with Andel, and then we will get more and more up in the helicopter. So shortly on energy, what we faced when we started the partnership, it's an inherent issue for festivals that we are temporary. We know that we are only there for 1 week. What can we do differently when we only do it for 1 week each year? We have a lot of volunteers doing the festival, planning the festival, and we want to try new things and change all of the time. We also have a goal to be CO2 neutral, carbon neutral on scope 1 and 2 to our direct emissions, and that's very important for us to do so. That means we have to phase out fossil fuels. We have to do something about our internal transportation. We have used gas in food stalls and so on. And it means that we had to electrify the festival. And that is when we started our partnership with Andel. So now I have talked a lot. Now you have to talk, Henriette.
Yeah.
So when we started the partnership, where were you in Andel? Where were you as a company?
I think I was recently employed. A lot of us were. Andel was a big company that acquired some other companies and became Andel with these 400,000 owners in this huge co-op on Zealand. And we had an old project lying there from Roskilde Festival that had been, what would you say, postponed for a couple of years. And we started to re-engage with Roskilde because as I started my job, we found out that we wanted to do more for young people, which is a target group that is incredibly hard for us to reach because we're working in infrastructure. So I think that's where it started, and then we had a ton of conversations with you around how can we actually make people care about the green transition? How can we make people know that it's much better for the environment to use an electric stove instead of a gas stove? Not using electricity between 5 and 9 in the evening because that actually makes the system peak, because there's so many people who are making dinner and watching TV and maybe doing laundry at the same time. So we had an important message, and we thought that it was really important to get out to young people as well. So there was a bunch of creative thoughts going on with Roskilde Festival, figuring out, okay, how are we going to do that? How are we going to start electrifying this basically huge field outside of Roskilde, which it is basically a huge field that we just built on. And we went from there. We started to involve our different daughter companies and made an activity for the the participants at the festivals with kinetic tiles. That was really kind of gimmicky, but really fun as well. And then, we just went from there and saw how much we could actually transform. So the project, I think this summer is 4 years old, and we actually have achieved a lot, both on the electricity side, but also on, I would say, working with Emma on the gas in the food stalls. It's a really huge project and really interesting to see how the food stalls are actually taking that. You know, we're going to come up to them and say, you can't use gas anymore, you have to use electricity. So it's been quite a journey. We also came at it from a point of view that as an infrastructure company, we're testing a bunch of things, but we have never tested in a pop-up, environment before, you know, building from zero to 120% in a week or two. So that was also a huge challenge for us, actually figuring out how can we do that, and then also if we can do it at Roskilde Festival, where can we build it as well?
Yeah, and that is kind of where you can test out a lot of solutions. I think that has been one of the strong things that we have kind of said, okay, what would it be crazy if we did this? And then we tried it. We have done a lot of things. First of all, we have gotten a lot of knowledge and expertise and a lot of a different view on how we do things by involving a partner like Andel, because there's a lot of business as usual on a festival. I often see Roskilde. I think you can have experienced it too. Like, on one hand, this very heavy train going very fast, doing the same thing. Everything has to be in order, security, everything. And then it's also full of ideas and change and let's do something different and all of those things. And that's something you have to navigate. I think you have experienced that too.
Sounds like the rest of the society.
Yeah.
Honestly, one of the really interesting things that we do is that we don't hire people to take with us out there to actually approach the young people. It's all people from the company. So when you're out there, you can actually meet a CEO, or you can meet a strategy director. And one of the things that we prep them on is to actually say that that something will happen that's out of control. And when it does, you will know that it's out of control, but you will have to find a solution for it. And it just happens every year. I mean, it's amazing, and it's really getting them out of their comfort zone. And I think they're really happy to be there, but sometimes it's just hectic as hell.
Yeah, it can be chaotic sometimes, being at a festival setting. We have spent a lot of time on this phasing out gas in all the food stalls, and also electrifying a lot of different things on the festival, getting rid of all of our diesel generators, and also measuring what we use energy for, because it's also the mentality thing. On when you save energy, you have to be aware of it, right? And I think that that's also an important part of putting the partnership forward to actually get people to notice.
Yeah, for sure. I think it's super interesting that when we start to actually show people that we're measuring the electricity outcome from the food stalls or from the stages even, or something like that, that they actually start to consume less because they can see that it has an impact. I mean, normally at festivals I would think, well, I know that at some festivals you just get like a gas, a gallon of gas, and then you can just use it in the food stalls. But here we're actually trying to be really mindful and trying to tell them that, you know, they shouldn't be cooling the beers in the middle of the night because nobody's going to, well, maybe not in the middle of the night, but in the morning, because nobody's going to be buying them at that point. So they're actually thinking smart around their electricity habits as well.
Sorry, can I ask a rhetorical or pedagogical question? Can you tell a bit about the energy mix? Why is it so crucial to do an electrification?
I think the energy mix, I mean, One of the things that we're actually launching next month is that Roskilde Festival is going over on a power purchase agreement. Up until now, they've been running on REC certificates from our wind farm and our solar farms. But having them coming over to the power purchase agreement, you can never guarantee that there's 100% green electricity going through the grid. Not in Germany, not in Denmark. I think in Denmark it's 80%. I don't know how much it is in Germany by now. It's around 50. That in mind, it's really hard to actually say, okay, it's 100% green energy, but from certificates you can do that, and through power purchase agreements you can actually certify your way around it. So, I mean, in the end of December, Roskilde Festival is going to be co-owner of one of our big solar parks at Hvide, right now outside of Slagelse. So, that's it.
Yeah, and I think that for us we can electrify the festival as all the way through, but it's super important that the energy mix becomes green. And we can do some things to help that by doing this power purchase agreement, but we also need the general society to actually move in the right direction to make green energy. Yeah, and I think in Denmark we are going in the right direction.
We are quite in a good way, also compared to Germany, yes.
But that is hopefully, and what we see, that is the future. But we can do our part to begin to electrify the festival. One of the things that we're also working on and talking a lot about now is transportation at the festival. Both in like the logistic and the production, all of the diesel that we ourselves put in cars, but also like the heavy machinery and a lot of that. And I think that's one of the things that we are going to work on next.
Yep. Yes, it is. We have a Danish daughter company called Clever that is. I'm pretty sure that they're market leading on setting up the electric vehicle infrastructure in Denmark. It's a lot different than in Germany to drive an electric vehicle in Denmark these days. But Clever has been with us at Roskilde Festival for the past 3 years. And all of the years they have set up, electric charging for the artists. You have to correct me if I remember it wrong. It's for the artists. It's for the logistics on the festival site. But we are actually coming too short when we are looking at the participants of the festivals when they're coming in. If they're coming in EV vehicles, that we should be putting up cables in fields, for a week and taking them down again. That's like a huge cost. And I don't think it's sustainable, actually, right now. Then we would rather have them, biking to the festival or skating to the festival or taking public transportation to the festival. So we're trying to supply the energy mix for the logistics of the festival right now, and then looking at alternatives for the participants.
Yeah, and I think that we have a lot to say at the festival, and like what is the frame for the participants when they go to the festival? What kind of behavior do we want them to have? And fortunately, a lot of people go with public transportation to Roskilde Festival, but a lot of people also go by car. So we have to figure out what are the solutions, and I don't think we have the answers yet. That is what we are exploring in the next period of time. And Henriette, I have written down the question, what have you learned from the partnership? But maybe it's broader than that. What has the influence, do you think, been at Andel to have a partnership like this?
It has made us very much more innovative. It has made us connect very much more with the younger what would you say, with the younger citizens of Denmark, the participants at the festival, and it has also, like, I would say, sharpened our products in some way. Some of the daughter companies that we have, they're really eager to come with us to Roskilde Festival, but they know that if they're going there, they would have to deliver a project, for example, for the gas stoves or for the electric stoves there, that could actually benefit the festival, and they're not just there for a gimmick. You know, they would have to deliver on something. So I think that everybody is sharp on like their toes to try and make it out there, and then. It's just, I think there's also another aspect to it is that every year we have this, we call it a business-to-business event there, where we invite the daughter companies out there, and they can bring some of their, what would you say, their stakeholders or their clients, depending on what kind of companies they are. And the connection part, like the culture and the society at Roskilde Festival is so unique. It's really, really odd that you're standing and talking to a director and he's like, I don't know what to wear, you know? Like, it's just, am I going there, like, can I wear a suit? And I'm like, don't wear a suit. But the culture there is really different, and it's really inspirational, I think, for a lot of them to actually see Andel as a company who are doing these projects as well, because it's just creative. It's a really good way of actually connecting to the different stakeholders in Andel for us. And then all the what would you say, the employees, they want to come because they get sometimes if they do some work, we might be able to supply them with a ticket, and they can be out there and listen to some music, and everybody likes that. So
yeah, and I think that it's a core approach for us to do partnerships and do close partnerships where we go in and work on what do we do at the festivals. We have different partners, of course, but I think that having an energy company, we hadn't seen that in Denmark before, at least working so closely together.
Yeah, I think for us, I think it was 2 years ago we were nominated for an award together with Roskilde Festival at, I think it was the European Festival Awards, if I remember correctly, in the Netherlands, and it was mind-boggling to us to actually see that us being nominated for a brand activation award, like all of the other companies that were nominated were, I mean, really commercial players, and they were all alcoholic beverages. You know, they were all selling stuff where I really think that we are there to try and transform habits and actually push the green transition, which is direly needed across the globe.
Yeah, and I think that is maybe some of the like bottom-up approaches. Mathias, when we at festivals and energy companies together do some of these bottom-up projects, I know you like to talk about Danish windmills in Thy and how we can use some of these, how this is maybe also an example of some of the same things.
Sure, of course I'm very biased. It's my job to sell Denmark and Germany, and of course we tell the green story. But one of the storytellings, of the stories that we tell a lot, is, as you say, the story about the hippie communities already in the late 60s, in the 70s, doing windmill projects, and their dream was to create autarky or independency of the outer world, so to say. They wanted to make their own small hippie communities, and there is actually a straight line from these nerds doing the first windmills in Thy in the northern Jutland to the first offshore parks in the world, and they were Danish at the beginning of the 90s. So they generated a lot of knowledge and a lot of know-how, also very practical know-how. And I think that's one of the reasons for the relatively good progress in the Danish green transition I don't want to paint all Denmark green, not at all. The Danes, they have a far too high consumption, for example. We have too much, some branches of our agriculture isn't really green. We are working on that right now, by the way, with this tree part. Big parts of Denmark, or more precisely 15% of the Danish agriculture, is going to be wieder aufgeforstet, to be turned into wood and forest again, to take care of the waters close to the shores in Denmark. But besides from Denmark not being totally green, we've done some pretty lucky and some right things from back then. And the point of the story with the hippies doing energy independency or autark systems is that it created an atmosphere and it created a basis for bottom-up processes in Denmark that has been broadly accepted in Denmark, and that is actually different if you compare it to Germany. There are some very good examples. There are, of course, in Germany as well, totally autark villages. There are good projects, though they came later, and the general atmosphere in Denmark is more. There's a bigger accept that we need bottom-up and top-down processes to meet. And my claim is that this spirit was born already back then. And at the same time, if we look at it historically for a second, at the same time we had the oil crisis in '73, and the Danes, they did something very, very clever. They started to make what you in German called kommunale Wärmeplanung, or in Danish kommunal varmeplanlægning. So they said, hey, on a local level, we have to plan how to make our district heating. And there was even an obligation for many years to join the nets that when as they were rolled out. And that created the basis for our, I would call it, very big success with the district heating today. So that was more an approach from above, but the Danes accepted it back then, and actually it's also part of the political fight in Germany today, also about the Gebäudeenergiegesetz, that's very nerdy, last year, that many people did not accept too much steering from above. The Danes did in the 70s, of course, on the background of the crisis as well, but the whole foundation of the Danish energy transition was laid back then, though not only with green energy, also with a lot of oil and mainly a lot of coal. But once you have a grid for district heating, you can but you can change the source, whatever you put into it. So that's really a big advantage in Denmark today. But now coming to your question, yes, the bottom-up approach is extremely important, and that's why I'm very happy to sit on this stage as well, and to hear about that progress at the Roskilde Festival, because it's so symbolic for Denmark. It's the youth, it's party, it's good atmosphere, it's everything that we like to combine, so to say, with the struggle for a better future. So it's really a wonderful story to tell, also as a head of communication at the Danish Embassy in Germany.
Yeah, and I love the very direct line you can take from like the hippies in the late 60s to Roskilde Festival. Those were kind of the same group of people starting the festival and making the festival a test platform.
But I also think that's one of the reasons why we find Roskilde Festival so interesting, and elaborating on what you said, Mathias, is that I think community is really core to a lot of businesses being done in Denmark. And the community around Roskilde Festival, the fællesskab that is there, that is like a core value because of where you came from, it's kind of resembling the core value that we have as a co-op, you know. It's a bigger responsibility to actually say, okay, we need to transform the society bottom up, starting from back in the 1920s when Andel or its predecessor started to set up electric wires all over Zealand, and now setting up infrastructures to actually own up to this responsibility. And I think it's a really beautiful, democratic, I would even call it, value that that a lot of companies around the world could learn something from. The whole democracy, community building together, figuring things out, not making, what would you say, standard solutions, but actually testing it as we go along.
Yeah, and I think that what you're saying about the community at Roskilde, I think that is, the community feeling is something I feel like all festivals have in common in a way. Of course, we have a very special community at Roskilde Festival, but I think that all festivals you go to, people are often super open-minded. They have time. They are maybe with their friends or their family. They're having a great time. And I think that that space in itself, that communal space that festivals are, they can be super ideologic as Roskilde are and come from the hippie movements, but you can also be a small festival, you could be a very commercial festival, all of those things. But I think that the thing that is very unique for festivals is the community, and I think that all festivals have the opportunity to put that community into play, and to try some things out and work together with your audience to try to make some change. I think that, of course, for some maybe we are, you can all maybe say an extreme example because we are so big and so value driven, but I think that all festivals could serve in different ways as test platforms, and that
I would also say that one of the things that makes you more special than, or maybe it's not even more special, but it's back to how you were built. It's back to the participants at Roskilde Festival. They're there participating as citizens, maybe not as much as consumers as they are at other festivals, and I think that's really key. So, I mean, Roskilde is a music festival, but you also have like conversational topics that you bring up. Like every year you have stages where people, they're debating and they're learning how to use their voice. I think it's extremely important, and that's not something that you see everywhere. So that's also something that we're really happy to be a part of.
Yeah, and that's maybe something you can grow, that people are not just consumers going to a festival, but they are actually citizens being there with everything that they think. And I think that the context we are operating in right now is a scary context in many ways. We have war, we have some scary political tendencies as well, and I think that that's the reality we're navigating, both in Denmark and in Germany right now. And
sure, we're pretty much in the same boat. If we, for example, have an American president saying drill baby drill, then it will have a huge impact on the whole the wish for green capitalism and the transition in the whole world. Sure.
Yeah, and there's a big question, not just, I think it's festivals have like this unique opportunity to do some good, but I think that it's a question that we are all going to have to ask ourselves, both in the future but also right now, is how can we actually contribute to a better future, to building community, to actually do some good in this world. And you can do that in so many different ways. I think that working with energy for us is one thing that we do, and I think that that has been super important for the way we produce this festival, and but also how we influence our audience.
Yeah. And I mean, I've only been on festivals, not like you guys as professionals, but only as a customer or as a citizen. But on the other hand, I see a kind of double bind because it's not everyday life when you go to a festival. I recently went to Attention Festival on this fusion gelände, and that was a wonderful example of people being extremely responsible. It's a wonderful, quite small festival, I think 12,000 in Mecklenburg-Vorpommern. And on the one hand, it's so much out of your everyday life context that it seems like a kind of holiday. I saw many people being very split between I want to relax, I want to have good food. By the way, only vegetarian food, which I think is a very good move. I support that a lot. Don't tell the Danish pork industry. And on the other, so on the one hand, being very responsible, and on the other hand, wanting to be served, wanting to have a good time, wanting to drink a lot of beers, and wanting things to be easy for you, wanting to have easy access to a hot shower, to all kinds of comforter goods during the festival.
Yeah, we see that a lot. We have worked under the theme for the last couple of years, Utopia, because in one way, when you step into the festival, it is not everyday life. In some aspects, it's like this dream society, this dream city. It also carries a lot of the issues from the society around us into the festival. We know that. We also see people leaving a lot of trash on the festival, a lot of camping gear. We have also worked a lot on that, on what we can do there. But I think it's also super important that when we do stuff like this that is so out of the ordinary, how can we bring some of that out from the festival and into society? How can we create something good, not just for 1 week, but for the whole year? And I think that we try to do that in a lot of different ways as a festival. There's one thing that we donate all of our profits to charity. That is one way to do it. We also work very intensely with the ones that we give money to. So it's not just a donation, but also giving know-how. But it's also how can we influence the audience when we have them here, we have them at the festival. Can we give them something they can take home? And maybe it's hope.
And you have the responsibility to do it.
Definitely.
You have 130,000 young people at one place.
Exactly. So it's both like a big responsibility to do so, but also a big opportunity to do so. I think that you can both. We have introduced in the last couple of years that you can rent camping gear from us, which has been a practical nightmare in many ways, but we made it work. Which is great, and I think that just for one thing, it's an example of people trying to rent something instead of owning it. And to get that experience, okay, that worked. That was actually possible to do so. You get that sense. But we can do that in a lot of different ways, so it's not just this utopic city for 1 week of the year. And on energy, as we have talked about that, there is also a lot of awareness, and maybe how can we put it, how can we put the talk about energy into this setting where people are there to have fun and go around having a nice time? How do you introduce talking about energy to them? And yeah,
we did that. I think we did that this year, but also last year with the food court down there, where we stored the energy on batteries. I think Dennis is going to be talking about that later. We stored the energies in batteries so it wouldn't be as hectic and as pressed when the peak hours came between. I think at Roskilde it's normally in a Danish household it's between 5 and 9, but at Roskilde it's between 3 and 22 or something like that. So that it would actually impact the people there, that they knew that if they were going to be eating and consuming during those hours, they were actually pressuring the system.
Yeah, and I think that you can kind of get a different understanding of some of those issues when you are in a very different setting. I think that one of the last things that I wanted to touch upon is that maybe a festival and an energy company isn't something that you see every day, and but maybe you should. And Mathias, maybe also for you, what do we gain when we work together across sectors, across borders? Why is it so important that we do that?
Whoa, that's a big one.
Small
Across
question.
borders, I would put it in another way. If we don't cooperate across borders in Europe, we are, can I say the F word? We are fucked. I mean, that's obvious. We have just been living through the beginning of an energy crisis after the full-scale invasion of Ukraine. And we have seen the consequences of Europe being so dependent on import of energy. That's like the very big picture. So we actually started using the frame of freedom energy instead of renewable energy. It sounds a bit pathetic, but I'm very honest. I think it's a good term. Freedom energy, because it is not only freedom in our relationship to Russia. We still spend more money on Russian energy than we spend for Ukraine, but also being independent from pressure from on a geopolitical level on many levels in our society, and it's also about our competitiveness in Europe. So that's a very big picture that of course we have to work across borders in Europe, and then secondly, the German and Danish cooperation is of course in my view it's very special and especially important, mainly because the German industry, Germany still has a heavy industry, and companies like ThyssenKrupp or have real steel companies, car production and so on, and they need a lot of energy. And in Denmark we have a lot of, at some periods we have a surplus of renewable energy. And that's why green hydrogen is going to be a big thing in the future. It's not the perfect solution, but we definitely need it, and we definitely need it cross-border within the next decades. So, yeah, cross-border is very crucial, and of course also cross-border exchange of knowledge, and I hope that's what we're doing today as well, talking about Danish solutions from Roskilde Festival in a German context. So yeah, that's why I used the F word. So much about cross-border cooperation, but also cross-sectional cooperation is extremely important, and that's what we mainly do in my small department for culture and communication at the embassy as well. We try to tell also the transition stories with storytelling and through a cultural and maybe even aesthetic filter to make a progress that is deeply felt, so to say, that is woven into our storytelling of our own lives, of our future possibilities. And to be honest, the challenges of the futures, even of the near futures, they are really, really damn big. So we also need art and we also need culture to make an awareness of this transition. And I know that because I've been trying to tell people a lot about district heating, for example, and only the nerds listen. If you say district heating to normal people, they're like, boring. It is boring, but it's damn important that we do get these kinds of solutions. And if there is a general, let's say, cultural, deep awareness of that, also through our storytelling, through our stories about ourselves, our identity, then we can start to move on.
Can I ask one more question? Do you
I
think
think
that
we have
it's
very little time left, so it has to be very quick.
okay? It's going to be very brief. Do you think it's special that Roskilde Festival is set up as an NGO and Andel is set up as a co-op, like in the ownership form compared to German companies, like as a competitive advantage or something like that?
Oh, I don't know enough about the structures of the German festivals. Lots of people here do, so I wouldn't be happy to say too much. But I know that there are corporations that look a bit like it. For example, the Wacken Open Air Heavy Festival. They have GP Joule as a partner, and actually they're going for green hydrogen combined with renewable electricity. So it exists, but I don't know the forms of the companies and how they work.
Great. I think that will finish off our little talk. Then we will bridge over to, you touched upon it briefly, that we have used battery solutions to obtain some of the results that we've gotten, and we have used greener battery solutions, where Dennis will just have a brief 10 minutes to talk about what you did at Roskilde. So
I will try to do it in 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So thank you, Emma, Henriette, and Mathias, for giving me some time to talk about greener and what we do in the energy transition. So first of all, so at Greener we use our mobile battery systems to accelerate the energy transition, and we started back in 2018, and we run on the motto easily emission free, but with any new idea getting started wasn't easy at all. Our founders Dieter and Klaas, they had to sleep next to the batteries at festival sites because everything still had to be done manually. And now if we fast forward to 2024, things look completely different. We have the largest battery fleet in Europe, and since our foundation in 2018 we kept track of our savings, and last week we saved over 11 million liters of diesel, which is also the equivalent of almost 30 million kilograms of CO2 emissions. And we've done this by means of more than 180 battery systems in our fleet. And this year alone, we supplied over 100 events of our battery solutions. 50% of them were internationally, such as Tomorrowland and Rock Werchter. And of course, a whole bunch of festivals in Denmark, including Roskilde, which gave us a lot of opportunities to spread out our energy mission in Denmark. And we've done a whole bunch in the Netherlands as well, including digital and Into the Great Wide Open. And what was amazing about Into the Great Wide Open is that we not only did the entire festival emission-free, but also the entire build-up and the breakdown of the festival itself, including the machinery that was used, all run on electric and all charged by battery systems. So, working with Roskilde and festivals alike really showed us how innovation and especially collaboration created a lot of new possibilities for change. And we can say a whole thing about change, but change is really a mindset. If the mind is not willing to change, then it's definitely not going to happen. So today I will tell you a bit more about how we help changing the entire festival scene. And to show you what the role is of Greener in all this, we dive into the case of Roskilde. As become clear, Roskilde is trying to create a festival as sustainable as possible. And a scale as Roskilde with over 100,000 visitors, this is really something admirable. It's really challenging to create a festival so sustainable and emission-free at this scale. Still, they achieved a lot in cooperation with Andel, but there were some open ends that we had to tie up, which meant phasing out the last bit of diesel generators. And this is where they brought in Greener. we were presented with a situation that there were large main connections available in the festival grounds. But, of course, as we all know, there had to be a backup supply in case things would go sideways. And on top of that, the food area, it was still unsure if there was sufficient power available here during the peak hours, at least. The challenges that we had to overcome were as followed. Absolutely no fossil fuels. We had to maximize the power that was available in the grid. And we had to ensure that all the critical areas at the festival site had backup power. So the solution that we presented them here in 2023 is in total 6 batteries. We supplied 4 batteries as a backup power for 4 stages. Here the battery was placed between the grid power and the stage, and in case for whatever reason the grid would fail, the battery would take over automatically, ensuring a safe backup supply of power. On top of that, the food area, we set up the batteries in peak shaving. Here the batteries were also connected to the grid, and whenever the peaks rose from the food area, the battery would cover the peaks that could not be covered by the grid power supply. The batteries collected all this data, and this data gave Roskilde the opportunity to make some new data-driven decisions. And the data showed that there was in fact enough power available in the grid for the food area. So from this year and next year onwards, we only supply 4 batteries purely as backup. And this means that Andel did an amazing job. They succeeded in facilitating enough power for the entire festival to run on. So still, a lot of festival organizations don't have the luxury to rework their entire festival structure. And this makes it even more important to find the right power supplier. Because you want to allow your dancers to have some moments of fun dancing in the dark, but the last thing you want as a festival organization is the silence of a blackout. So the right power supplier has a lot to think about. Energy demand, sustainability goals, being able to make data-driven decisions, and so on, cost efficiency, noise emission management, and also regulatory compliances, which become more and more of a pressure for a festival organization. At least in the Netherlands, especially nearby nature areas, you have to become emission-free or reduce your fossil fuels in order to receive a permit for your festival in the first place. And I can only imagine that this will only be more and more of a norm in Europe. Now with this whole list of things, you wonder how can we achieve this with mobile battery systems? Well, a mobile battery system consists of 2 components, hardware and software, which we refer to as the body and the brain. The body is nothing more than a large box. It's a 10-foot container which holds around 8 or 10 battery packs, a converter, and some in and outputs. And the hard truth is, everybody with money can buy a body from the right supplier. But the body is completely useless without the brain. And this is where our software comes in and what makes our entire solution intelligent. So what our software does is it optimizes the use of the battery systems, but it also optimizes the use of all the other energy sources that are connected to it. That can be a grid, it can be a generator, it can be renewable sources such as solar, wind and hydrogen. And whatever you can come up with, we want to give it a shot. And our software also ensures that it's being monitored and controlled 24 hours a day. And it can interfere whenever there's a risk of a problem occurring. And this allows us 9 out of 10 times or even more to prevent the problem before it occurs. Besides that, at the end of each project, we generate a data report which shows how much CO2 and diesel savings you have, how many running hours you've avoided from a generator. And for festivals, this is in particularly interesting because festivals often occur at the same location every year. And this data allows you to dive into the deep and optimize your power plan, and therefore you can reduce your emissions. So we do this usually by 3 standard setups that we see at festivals. We do this with peak shaving, where the battery is connected to a grid. Here the battery takes care of the peaks where the grid can't reach it. If there's no grid, we cycle with a generator, and there the generator only runs at its optimal power. And if the grid doesn't provide sufficient energy, we do a hybrid setup where we supply, where the power is supplied by and the grid and a generator. Besides these 3 standard setups, we also dive into the advanced setups, in which we do 2 or more batteries in series or in parallel. We haven't reached our max yet. We think it might be even infinite, but we have stationed 7 batteries or 8 batteries in parallel, reaching up to 2 megawatts. And it also allows us to integrate sustainable power sources, as previously mentioned. We love to dive deeper into the technical parts, but we're running short on time. So that brings me to my last topic. In practice, we have proven and seen that changing is already possible, but eventually changing all comes down to a conflict that occurs in the minds of the festival organizations. It's fear versus desire, and with fear we see that switching takes effort, it's scary, it's unfamiliar and risky, and what if something goes wrong? And this is especially true for festivals because your entire organization depends upon a snapshot, and what you do not want is to waste that moment away. Your turnover for the entire year might depend on it. Then we have desire, which says, I want or need to reduce emissions and aim for 0 emission, but can I do that without stressing out? The hard truth is, no. Change is uncomfortable, and we get that. And that's exactly why Greener is here. And that's also the reason why we grow so extremely fast, because we can be the bridge between the fear and the desire. So to sum this all up, the energy transition sounds like something scary, and it sounds really big. But in the end, it's nothing more than taking some small steps towards a new direction. And yeah, what I said in the beginning, this switch needs to occur on your festival sites. It needs to happen physically, of course, but it also needs to happen mentally. This is where the biggest switch takes place. Yeah, if you're ready to flip that switch, come have a chat with me or my colleague over here, and we'll be more than happy to talk you through it and to dive into the possibilities of your festival. Thank you.
Das war das Panel mit dem Namen
Festivals as Change Drivers Towards a Greener Future.
Wenn ihr Kritik oder Fragen habt, dann schreibt uns gerne unter www.futureoffestivals.com. Wir sehen uns spätestens am Donnerstag, den 27. und Freitag, den 28. November 2025 in der Station Berlin. Bis dahin.